talk about treating AI like a team member with onboarding, with training. What does that look like in practice? It's a machine, like it's not a human. How should companies, from your perspective, be approaching AI adoption and like treating an AI tool as its own team member?
Yeah, so this is something that we drill into the engineers that hop onto the Howdy platform because we're always keeping them up to date, the latest tools, techniques, and procedures for interacting with these kinds of these emerging trends in technology. It essentially means that when you're starting to adopt AI tools in really in any kind of environment, but in particular a remote environment, you have to have the same emphasis on onboarding process and training that you would a person. And that sounds funny, but what we've seen is that many teams fall over when they just plug in a new AI tool, for example, Copilot, and they expect magic, especially management, right? Like I got everybody Copilot, and for whatever reason, we're not shipping faster. People aren't using it as much. What's going on? We've seen this time and time again. You need to set up the right environment and context and guidance for adopting these kinds of AI tools. So some like concrete tips here and examples. The environment, so if you're talking about developers, maybe there's an analogy for your teams, but for developers, it means that that development environment needs to be set up and ready to go and mostly automated in the deployment code, right? So the deployment environment, the development environment needs to be set up in a way that's mostly automated because if you need an AI system to contribute to it, all of that stuff, it needs to also set up the development environment and it needs to be able to see your deployment scripts or your environment scripts, read them to understand, okay, the database is over here, the caching system's over here, and now it knows enough to actually contribute to your projects, right? So the same way that you would need that kind of on your first day, if you have all of those things set up correctly, on your first day, a developer joins, and at the click of a button, they have the environment ready to go. It's very similar for an AI system.
Hmm.
AI systems also need that environment to read, right? It also needs, or these systems also need all the documentation and the content. So if you're a developer and there's not a lot of documentation about how things are architected or how you do things on your team, and those things your developer just has to figure out over the course of months or weeks, then an AI system's going to go down rabbit holes. An AI system is not going to contribute the way that you need it to, right? Either automated test cases or refactoring or whatever. Your teammates can't even do it. And these systems are naturally language systems, so they need that the language describing how your architecture works and stuff. Things like READMEs, things like Wikipedia articles or Confluence articles, requirements documents, all the things that you would feed to an intelligent senior engineer to get them productive in their first week. Well, guess what? You got to have that for an AI system too. And a lot of people just think it's black magic and it'll work, and unfortunately, it doesn't. And then they get lackluster results. Um, and then the last one that I'll mention is, I guess, the culture about the work is also super important. So if there if if there's a document describing this is our definition of done, our definition of done for the humans is that we have acceptance criteria, we have unit tests, we have integration tests, we have observability and metrics strategies or whatever it happens to be. And you have that written down and it's repeated over and over again. And the code and the architecture support all those things. Guess what? Those are the same sort of instructions and prompts that you can give, that you have to give to Cursor or Gemini or whatever model you happen to be using or whatever
Hmm.
IDE you're using, so that when it does generate code or touches files and this and that, it has that, it behaves in the same way. It won't do it without it. You have to be good about the software engineering and the culture in your prompting systems, in your documentation, so that the AI's generated code can pick up on those cues and generate things with that context.